Welcome back to EHS Concepts, the ways of safety. I'm your host, Ryan, and I have a special guest tonight, and I'm going to let him introduce himself. So please, take it away.
My name is Jeramiah. I've been in safety for a while. I started off back in 2006. I was in the Marine Corps 4 years, got out in 2010, and then got into firefighting. Was a fireman for 10 years and got into rescue tech in confined spaces and started dabbling into the rescue world, which led me to work for a power company. I worked at a power plant as a rescue technician on my off days. And so with the safety department, I operated as their rescue technician doing, permits and high angle stuff. And I mean, up as high as like 580 to 605 feet doing rappelling and things like that. And then started really having a knack for it, really enjoying the side of safety, and then made the career move, switched into a full-time safety position, and I worked for a large railcar repair company where we installed railroad tracks and heavy machinery, blasting and painting. Also, we got into railcar cleaning, so we had a lot of hazmat and a lot of confined spaces, a lot of high risk operations in that. After about 3 to 6 months, I started to kind of make my name in the company I was with. They started floating me out to other facilities and started pursuing kind of the regional role. And then I kind of became like a safety trainer, so to speak. So I would go in, and if someone of the safety guys was struggling, I'd go and kind of help them out and help out paperwork or walk the shop and kind of give them some techniques. And then from that, got offered another opportunity, a bigger company, to be a senior safety specialist, which got me away from the environmental, which I was very happy for. They have the whole environmental department. I was like, perfect, thank you, no thank you. And safety is plenty of work for me. I don't need to add the environmental side. So then I have since been with this company, and it's a construction firm, so we have rock quarries and trucking and contractors and facility contractors. We also do some metal fabrication, piping contractors, kind of anything in the construction industry. We touch it. So that's where I'm at now.
Yep. And then for everybody at home, Jeremiah and I have already had an interview. I had some technical difficulties, so we're redoing an interview. So we may feel like we're talking over something again, but we're going to talk about it again if we can. I may know what he's going to say, but it'll be perfect.
He's just that good.
Stories that we told each other already. So that first question that I usually ask is about some of your I usually ask, how can you explain environmental health and safety, what it encompasses in your knowledge and career field, which you kind of did already. But those common safety issues, I think this is where we get that common ground that anybody that's in safety, EHS, SHE, HSE, whatever the alphabet algorithm you want to put in. I only like EHS because it's in alphabetical order. That's just how I like it. And some people say, well, no, if the E's first, that's your primary role in safety is environmental. I'm like, no, not for me. I've been EHS on a lot of different things, and it's not always environmental until I've worked with an environmental company. So, those common safety issues, can you describe a situation where that safety program was particularly challenging to implement, and what were the outcomes and the overcomes, the adapt and overcome?
Yeah, we are good at that. That's audibles is one of the things that I write about a lot. Probably the most challenging I've ever had is coming into a poorly managed safety program. And I've said it before and I'll say it again, is nobody hates bad safety guys more than good safety guys, because I would rather build a safety program from the floor than try to change a culture, change an established safety program that has been ran poorly, where
Mm-hmm.
the employees don't feel appreciated, or they don't feel that they have to, they're not being held accountable or anything like that. So that was my first real experience with safety. Was my first day, go down to the meet the guys, and kind of get my feet wet and hop out there. And one of the shop leads came up to me after the toolbox, and he goes, "We didn't like the last safety guy, and we're not going to listen to you." Said it to my face, and I was like, "Huh, that's wild that you just say that to me." And over the course of
And you're
my
not a
time
small
there,
guy, right?
I'm not a small guy. Yeah, and I've been this size for a long time, and he was smaller than me, and I was like, huh, like that is not often do I get talked to like that. As blue collar guys, man, you, as soon as you know how to weld, that's it. You can lift the world.
Yep.
Well, when that was my opening act into safety, and it kind of like opened my eyes into go, well, I can't force something that I can't force a culture, or I can't force ideals into some people who already have established practices and things like that. So the best thing I could do is just try to win them over. And you know I'm not going to sit here and say that it wasn't challenging at times. It was extremely challenging, and there's a lot of victories I had from that, but there was a lot of lessons learned as well. But by the end of it, by the time I was ready to move on from the company, he was the first one to come up and shake my hand. He's, you know I'm sorry to see you go. Like, man, and every once in a while, still, I've been gone for the company for a while. He'll text us and be, "Hey, man, you coming back?" And I'm like, "No, not coming back." We check my calendar. Nope, not planning on coming back, but I do appreciate it. And I think a lot of it was me going in there and talking to the individuals like men. Just see them as people. And the ladies that work there as well. We talk to them as people. They're not cattle. They don't want to feel like a number. They want to be like, "Hey man, how's the kids? I know the wife was sick. How are you? How are you handling that?" Because all of that, all those little details go into your safety program.
Mm-hmm.
Because if Shayna's wife is not feeling well, Shane's not here. It's here physically. It's not here mentally.
Mm-hmm.
So now I know, okay, well, he's, you know, half in, half out. So maybe I spend a little bit of time, maybe call him off of calm down off of a project. Then how are things? Do you need anything from me? Can I go get you something? You know, and just that little bit, just to slow him down just a little bit. And then he's like, "Yeah, I am okay." Just to kind of clear the air. It doesn't have to be a long time.
Nope. Nope.
But
And see, I love
that,
that. And yep, go ahead.
I was gonna say that was like my lowest of low, and my highest of highs is starting there. And then by the time I left there, I had like a pretty good grasp on things.
Mm-hmm. And so I remember our other conversation, and I think I told you that I had a director when I first got there. It was when I was newer to the civilian side of safety, not the military side of safety. Um, that he just wanted me to go to all these different sites and visit. Didn't want me to do my job.
Hmm.
Irritated the hell out of me because I'm there. I'm like, well, this is unsafe. I need to do this. And he's like, no, no, no. First give me a week. And a week went by, and the second week I'm like, I'm ready. I'm,
I've got a
I
hit
got,
list out.
I got my clipboard. I'm ready to go. And he's like, nope, give me another week. Third week goes by. I'm still just visiting people, getting to know them, knowing about them, what makes them tick, what they like, if they hunt, they fish, if they go to weekend parlor classes, whatever it may be. I'm learning all this stuff with them. And the fourth week, it was running at the start of the fourth week, and I'm like, hey, I'm ready to go. He's like, nope, even one more week. Okay, so being in the military, you learned to follow. Even if you became a leader, you still learn to follow your leader, even though you may be a leader and you have a different outlook. You just, okay, let me listen to you. We get groomed, right? We get groomed for the next level of the military. And so that's how I felt this process was. And so I was doing it. Well, really at the start of the second month, that's when I'm starting to make an impact to conversations of just, hey, Bob, you have 3 children at home and you got a wife that just overcame breast cancer. Do you not want to see them after work? What are you talking about? Safety glasses, man. Like, no, I don't want to have to beat you up about it. He's like, oh, yeah. They fogged up on me. I just took them off for a second. Thank you for reminding me. That's it. I didn't have to beat them up. Didn't have to, do anything, write them up or go to a supervisor. Didn't do any of that. And that's when I've shared that story about the guy that I asked if he had a wife. Because it was in that whole process that I did the same thing with another individual. I walk on the job site, didn't know anybody, and this guy was getting ready to cut in a 3-inch tubing. No safety glasses or goggles or face shield. And I stopped. I said, hey, I heard somebody had an ugly wife on the job site. Is that you? And again, he's a big brother guy. What? Ready to swing. And I said, well, I just heard that someone out here on the job site has a really, really horrible, ugly wife. It's got to be you, man. He's like, what makes you say that? I'm like, well, look around. You're the only one risking his eyesight. And his eyes is like, whoa. And there's the safety glasses. There's his face shield. And he, puts them on. And then 3 months down the line, I mean, the whole time he would see me. He would scream 50 yards away, my wife ain't ugly. You son of a, he'd give me the one finger. Again, I didn't read the ANSI Riot Act. Didn't chapter and verse them with OSHA. Didn't do company policy and regulation. But it fixed the situation with some humor. Now, that may not work with everybody. I know this because I work with union too, which,
yeah.
Don't make union guys. Just sometimes you get a little butt hurt and it kind of sucks. Just so you know.
Yeah. Yeah, trust me, I know.
Non-union too, but more often than not, it's the union guys that get butt hurt. We love you.
Yeah, our job exists because of you guys, so we appreciate it. But also,
let's see. The next question is: can you share any success story where a safety program significantly improved your workplace safety, and what were those key factors that contributed to that success? Because you already kind of said what it was, what you do. But I remember our last conversation, you had something else that happened that changed another system or program that you did.
Yeah, so one of the big things, like you said, was talking to individuals and kind of gaining, their, understanding and kind of understanding who they were. But a lot of it was you start to call out the good. Once you start to call out the good, then you start to get a lot more buy-in. One of the things that I don't know if we mentioned last time, but we started a good catch program. And what it was is anytime we did bulk orders of PPE, from like Granger or Worth, sometimes they'll send you like free gifts, things like that. We just started collecting those. Normally we, kind of hand them out at parties and things like that. But I was just like, for the whole year, I just collected them all. And then we rolled out a good catch program. The good catch program is just a see something, say something program. But we didn't want to paint it as snitching, which, like, you're trying to give somebody life-saving advice. It's like snitching is not the right term for that. However, I understand what the concept is, but we called it a good catch program. And really it was, before something becomes a near miss, if we catch it beforehand, we want to promote that. And once we started rolling it out, we would have monthly plant-wide meetings. And in the plant-wide meeting, I would start it off with safety talk, like 5-10 minutes doing safety stuff. And then I was just like, hey, we got, Ryan over here. He spotted somebody going up on a rail car without fall protection. And before they even started climbing up, he's like, hey man, don't forget a harness. And his supervisor noticed that. And then here's this Yeti cooler I have. I'm like, hey Ryan, come get your Yeti cooler. And everybody else was like, what? I want a Yeti cooler. And I was like, hey man, you gotta, call it out. And then that was we had a poster with the QR code. So, put it in every break room. We put it in the, put it in the bathrooms, like, and it was like anybody can promote anybody on this. And then we got a couple that were colorful, like, hey, I stopped this guy from doing something. And I was like, oh, okay, well, I'm gonna delete that. That's horrible. And but
or you get the made up issues that got fixed.
Yeah, you'll get those too.
Yeah, you get 1,000 housekeeping issues, and it's like, you put that in front of the door. Like, you did that.
That's your ladder. Your toolbox is in front of the exit. I can see your name on it. So, but honestly, with like the first 6 months, I didn't care. If it was like, hey, I saw a pallet that was busted up and there was nails, and I stepped on the nails, like, and flattened them out. Perfect. And then like the first 6 months, it was anybody put something in there, you got something, maybe $5-10 dollars to a little gift card here and there. And man, it took off like wildfire. And it was incredible. And a lot of it just from stop focusing on the bad and start realizing the good. And that was probably our biggest change in that. But during that whole time, we were going through a bit of a culture change anyway, because when we're going through that, I'm trying to be, the safety marine. I'm coming in and be like, this is the regulation, this is what you'll do. And I'm putting things out there, and they're like, okay, yeah, we'll follow that. And they're not following it. And then finally I broke down, went to a meeting, and was like, hey, why aren't you guys doing this? And they're like, we can't. And I'm like, what do you mean you can't? And they're like, our job doesn't allow it. So that kind of took me aback, because when you look at something, call it playbook safety playbook 101, it's like, 1 + 1 = 2. And then you're like, okay, well, I took some self-reflection to realize that, in the field or in the shop, 1 + 1 doesn't necessarily equal 2, because they've got a job to do, and I have no idea how to do it. So as we're rolling out these, programs, I finally was just like, I'm gonna get out of the office. Get out of the office, and I go to a toolbox. So railcar blasting is, there's a lot of different components of it. There's fire entry, plus you've got, hazardous environments. You got explosive dust. You got all these things. And one of the things that I was trying to make them do is wear harnesses, and guys aren't wearing harnesses. And so I go into the meeting, I do the toolbox talk with them the first thing in the morning, and I go to the lead right there, and I go, all right, I'm your new blaster. And he looked at me like, like no safety guy has ever said that before. And he's like, yeah, okay, pat you on the head, go away, safety guy. And I was like, no, I'm serious. I'm your new blaster. It's like, if you got a new employee, I want the same treatment. So he's like, okay, put me in a suit, hook me up. We go into the rail car, and for 4 hours I blasted this rail car. And let me tell you, never again. That is something that I'll never do again. But you've got lights in the rail car, so you've got light cords going in. You've got the hoses for the abrasive blast going in. You've got airlines to to remove the dust. I'm like, well, no wonder they're not wearing harnesses. Because
Mhm.
where would you connect it to? And then also the dust reflects back to you, or the abrasive grit will reflect back to you. It'll destroy everything.
Yep.
And you put it under it's like, okay, well, you put it under the hood. Well, then now you get all the dust and grit on you. So I'm like, okay, you're right. Like, this does not work. So then we switched up how we did the rescues. We switched to a wristlet rescue system, and then we just drilled on it. And then I was just like, look, if we're going to do it this way, we're going to be great at it. And just just that little push of like, I've been in your shoes now. Now I'm not doing it every day,
Mhm.
but I understand that alone pushed the culture in the correct direction so far, because they were like, the safety guy isn't just sitting in his office. He understands the struggle.
Mhm.
And then not only do I understand, I didn't go, yeah, I mean, sucks to suck, but we got to do it. I went, you're right. That does suck. How can we make that better for you? What can I do to help facilitate that? And I think that alone, that kind of pushed the the culture along. We're trying to make, you know, impactful, strives in safety constantly. But
Mhm.
the simplest measure was just going, hey, I've been in your shoes. I kind of understand what you're going through. Like, let me make this better for us. And that instantly won me over. And then of course, like, after that they became kind of like, I don't know, my little pet project. So I'd
Mhm.
pop in, start double checking on their lockout and stuff. And it became a point of pride that they were able to be as safe as they were and still be high on productivity. And I always tell them, like, and I still do, if you have to cut corners to be productive, you're not good.
Right. Yep.
And I was just like, man, we are productive, we are, safe, our quality's good. We talk about the three-legged stool and safety a lot. And
Mhm.
I was like, you guys are doing great. Start pushing, like, hey, I'll buy you guys lunch.
Yep.
And it's not because it's like, hey, you guys don't have any injuries, I'm buying you lunch. It's like, I
Nope.
just appreciate you guys.
Mhm.
So that alone, I think that good catch program, being present in the shop, a lot of those things, just being next to a guy and then be willing to be dirty. I think
Mhm.
it pushes safety a lot further than people give it credit for.
Absolutely. I've been in the situations where I've had to be the bad guy and shut down whatever may be going on. Case in point, we're a subcontractor into another plant, and this plant has highly dangerous chemicals and vats. And our guys are supposed to go in and repair an auger. They were welders for stainless steel, and as soon as they did the atmosphere testing, the monitors were going off. Well, I just happened to do a spot check on that site that day and was walking up. And of course, I've got monitors in my truck, and I go up and I see the supervisor, and he's like, yeah. He goes, man, they ventilated this for 24 hours. I said, yeah, but let's check the blanking blocks and the bleeds and see if everything's 100%, because something could be somewhat open, or maybe they missed an incoming pipe or tube, something. And I'm like, man, I'm getting a little bit of a headache. And he's like, yeah, we all start getting headaches. I'm like, let's go outside. And
What
so
if
we go
what if we
outside,
go outside?
and I'm like, let's go outside. So we go outside, and I'm like, let's recalibrate everything, because I want to make sure that we're good on recalibration. Da, 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 da. I went and got bump test, did all that stuff. Go back in there. As soon as we had like five of them, five sniffers. As soon as we walk in the building, I'm like, holy, it's everywhere. It's not just above. It's not at the entry. I'm like, this, we can't. I'm not letting you guys go in there. And of course, the site's safety. He comes up, and he's a safety engineer, and he's like, well, you guys aren't using your monitors correctly, because da, 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 da. I'm like, well, do you have a monitor? You got one? Yeah. Can you go make sure it's calibrated correctly? And and come on in, and so him and two other people, they come back and they had one each, three of them. I'm like, the guys aren't going in and doing this work today. I'm like, you got to figure out what needs to be turned off, stopped, blocked, something. And the supervisor, he goes, we've never had safety actually come out and fight with on-site safety for our safety. I'm like, well, that's what I know I'm supposed to be doing for you. I'm here for you.
Yeah,
It's not just, the CEO and the whole C-suite there. It's for you. I said, I don't want anybody that I'm near or around or I interact with, whether it's a subcontractor that's next to us or not. I don't want anybody to get hurt. I go, so when I come in, I will never just shut down a job site just because I want to throw my weight around. I'm going to stop because I don't want anybody injured or hurt.
right.
And after that interaction, of course, it went wildfire through the divisions. Like, hey, you got something going on. And that would happen a lot. Case in point, we're in another project, and it was the same team. And thank God, because I think I shared to you about one story about another JSA getting turned off by general manager, but we'll get to that in a second.
Yeah.
I was 2.5 hours away from this job site, and I get called, hey, we caught into a pipe. There's a spill on the ground. There are environmental people here. They're freaking out. Da, 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 da. I'm like, okay. I said, is all the paperwork done? Like, oh yeah, we're sorry. Ryan, come on.
Yeah.
Just asking. You do have the JSA from this morning. He goes, yes. I said, okay. I'll be there roughly 2 hours. I don't know what you guys can do. He's like, well, we're just kind of standing around here, make sure no one comes through the area. Da, da, da. Okay. I'll be there. And so I show up. I read the JSA and I just start smiling. and the supervisor's like, what the hell, Ryan? He goes, what? I'm like, don't worry about it. He goes, your lunch is going to get bought by this customer today, just so you know. What? I'm like, oh yeah, you're going to get apologized too. What? Because they chewed them. They chewed the whole entire, like 25 guys, chewed them raw. I had people ready to quit because of it. And so I go up to their safety team and the environmental team and say, hey, do you see all the job steps here? Well, yeah, we signed it. I'm like, yeah, I'm glad you noticed that. Do you notice right here that you guys are supposed to make sure that all the pipes were cleared and backfilled with water and cleared again? Did that not happen before our guys because it says that you'll do that and then you'll give our guys the okay to make a cut into the pipe. So I'm like, hey, you've irritated my crew. I only ask you to buy them lunch and not fast food. Get them a decent meal.
Yeah.
I go, they'll be more than happy. They know how to handle cleanup. They'll be more than happy to help your crew clean up. But this is a change order for our time. I guess it's not really doing the materials, but we're gonna, you gotta pay them for this whole time.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, you have to.
We're out here, yeah.
Because the issue is not on our side. And again, Ryan, man, like that's what your safety person's supposed to be doing. It's like, we never had somebody like that before. I'm like, well, now you do, So
yeah.
And like you said, when you left the other company and the guy calls you, I get that too. And we talked about this. That's that heart paycheck.
Yep.
They get paid in the heart.
Yep.
And being that what we who entered safety to do correctly are the ones that are of that like mind, the same cloth as I think I said to you. We're cut from the same cloth. And I think that's missing. And that leads me into what this next generation of safety, amateurs that are coming into the profession to become professionals, what they need to be doing, what they need to be watching for. Maybe it needs to be hands-on tools, get the understanding.
Oh yeah.
Hey, well, okay, I understand the textbook of XYZ, but we're doing ABC. How do I get to O in the middle?
Right. Right.
NOP? Nope.
Right. That's it. You're missing one little deal. I think when we talk about the next generation of the, even kids coming out of college.
Yes.
If you're listening to this and you are coming out of college and you're like, well, how do I, have success? If you decide to do internships, you go out there and intern. And if they're just like, if you're just hanging in the office the whole time, go somewhere else. I mean, it get out in the field, put your feet on the ground. And if you're going to be a safety guy and you want to intern, say, in construction, intern with a foreman. Be like, I would like to be out with the crews, because nothing against the kids coming out of college. I have nothing against,
Right.
the fresh faces and things like that. But the biggest thing, the biggest struggle you're going to face as a safety professional coming out of college is you're going to be, a smooth faced kid, and you're coming into a world of grizzled, adults. And the first thing they're going to see is they're going to see somebody who doesn't know anything about what the field does. And that is going to be such a detriment, because they will find an excuse not to do something safely, and then they'll put it under the guise of, well, this is how it always has been. This is the way we've always done it, and then you just don't know. But if you can go like, oh, like that's the loader there, it's a 780 loader. It's like, how are you, hitting that grease point on that Z bar right there? And they're like, well, we climb on the bucket. Like, I really wish you wouldn't climb on the bucket. It's like, well, we can put a whip line on that and put it right here in a magnet. That way you don't have to get out of the bucket. Because then they realize, like, oh, he knows what he's talking about. Or I've watched enough YouTube videos where I can, BS my way
YouTube
around
certified.
something. Yeah, that's
YouTube
it.
certified.
Yeah, I'm a YouTube operator, so I'm a pretty big deal. But it really is getting out there. And honestly, some of the biggest successes I've had for some of the equipment is when you've got, cat mechanics, or, these guys who take it apart, is one thing that these guys love to do is talk about what they are passionate at. And if I'm next to a cat mechanic, I'm like, what does this do? He's like, oh, this is the steering linkage, and this is how you check it if it's good. And this is right here. This little wear plate is, what we use as an indicator. Because then I'm inspecting a vehicle and I can look at that steering linkage and see that wear indicator and go, hey, that might be a problem later. I'm like, how's your steering on this? And he's like, it's actually a little loose. And then if I can pull an operator out and be like, let me teach you something, they're like, oh, and then that's when everybody, the buzzword culture, safety culture,
Yep.
safety culture.
Yep.
Instead of having it as a poster inside the shop, be the safety culture. Be out there and be the safety culture. If you're getting into the field and you're like, how do I, make a difference in the safety environment, is be the safety culture. Get out there and watch these guys operate. And if they're making mistakes and doing things unsafe, always intervene. But but it's when you understand why the mistakes are happening, is when you can start to get to a true root cause, and that's where the culture change starts. Is once they can understand that you are willing to put the hours in. Nothing blows the crew's mind when I show up and it's after hours. It's like they saw a ghost. They're like, whoa, what are you doing out here? I'm like, you guys are out here. Why can't I be? And they're like, you just see them looking around, and I'm like, oh, trust me, I've seen all the violations already. So no problem putting on the class 3 vest now. I've already seen you guys in the class 2s. But if you're willing to do that, it doesn't, I'm not saying burn the candle at both ends. And I'm not saying, sacrifice your weekends and your nights. But if they're out there popping out once, every other week, just so they know that you will do it, now they're like, all right, everybody put your stuff on. Safe. We don't know where the safety guy is going to show up.
Yep. Yeah, especially on those. I've been on those construction sites where you're like in the trenches with the first shift. You may be there for a little bit of the second shift, and then the third shift comes in. and they're not wearing no
No,
PPE.
no.
They're doing crazy stuff, and you'll get a call at 3 a.m. from some site safety that's the GCs and it's going, hey, I just caught all your guys. They weren't wearing their harnesses, hard hats, da, 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 and you're just like, what?
Oh, what? Yeah.
Yes, you definitely need to have those times of surprise, but
Yeah.
and I do that, especially if I have multi sites. I usually don't let them. I do not let my sites know that I'm coming, especially to me. If I show up and I see what you're doing and you're doing it right, you're gonna get all the praise in the world. If I show up and you're cutting corners and doing those shortcuts, we're gonna have a discussion. We're gonna have and it's not gonna be a one way. I'm gonna get into the root cause of why you're allowing unsafe acts underneath your supervision, especially if you're a
Right.
supervisor, whatever. And then I'm gonna be like, you're not living up to what you're supposed to be doing, and that's where I get these standards and I talk about, are you at standards, above standards, or are you just below standards? And that's where you're gonna be. Because that's where you're gonna be, let's do something about it now. Like instead of getting
Well,
someone injured or killed.
and
If
that's
you're
the
not
thing
willing.
is the leader, when someone becomes a leader, especially in any kind of industry where you could be severely injured, those people's well-being is part of the leadership, making sure that they go home at the end of the day, and then coming up, as a safety professional or as a safety manager or whatever level you're at, you have to be the one to enforce that leadership. You're
Mhm.
not going to catch every violation all the time. There's never enough of us. And you have to be willing to go out there and hold the leadership accountable. If I go up on a site and I see guys being knuckleheads, I don't go yell at the guys. I go to the foreman and I go, look at that. Like, is that acceptable to you? And then most of the time, he's like, oh man, like, because then he got chewed on. So then he chews on the guys way worse than I would ever do it.
Right.
you know and it's like, I'm like, I'm holding you accountable because you definitely know better. They should know better. They've been trained, but you definitely know. You've been here 3, 5, 6, 10 years. You definitely know, and you should correct that behavior, and I will hold them accountable and you accountable across the board.
So on that, I want to ask you, because you did answer some of the questions that I always have. How can leaders at various levels contribute to fostering safety culture? And you nailed that with basically the frontline supervisors and below. So I've run into this several times on job sites, whether it be manufacturing or construction, where an executive or CEO, even the CEO, will come through and they will see Bob, Sarah, Joe, Jack, doesn't matter, without PPE on, or maybe they're not doing something as safe as they think they should be. And instead of going to that individual, where do they go? They come find us
Right.
and they chew on us. And that's where I've had where I push back a lot, because I don't take it, because I don't know if it's just my nature, my military training, whatever. It's like, do you realize they see this every day on the job site? They see you once a quarter, maybe, if they jump on the company townhome or whatever it may be, or whatever. Maybe you visit the site, but you're not here. The impact that you individually can make by going up to Jack, Joe, Sarah, whoever. Hey, is there a reason that you're not wearing your safety protection? Because I want you to make sure that you understand that are we out of them? Ask those questions. I guess coming from you is going to make a bigger impact than hearing it from me every day.
Right.
And that's where then I started into some executive training and I started getting into those levels. So that's why I was asking you, what else have you seen at those other levels where you've had to have those hard conversations? Because I literally have been on a job before at the 3-month mark where I'm like, it's not getting through the caveat of middle management to the executive level to the CEO. And I've been like, nope, sorry guys, I may not be here tomorrow. I'm risking my job, and I'm emailing the CEO, hey, this stuff is unset. Here's a heat map. Here's my racing matrix. Here's everything I'm doing, and I'm like, months have passed or 3 weeks have passed. We have an issue that needs to be addressed immediately. We need a policy, a solution. Address this. It needs course corrected now. you know, and I'm going to say it probably has been, if I say it was 8 times, I would say 7 out of the 8 times it was a positive interaction. And on the 8th out of 8 time, it eventually got to a positive interaction after a very, very, very harsh fight, of standing your ground and going, listen, I'm trying to protect you as your position, the company, but also the people that are making your profit.
Right.
And you're not understanding this, and I need to talk to you in a way. So over that course of time, I started learning, because I've said it to you before, and I'll say it again. I treat safety as a business inside of the business. And once you start learning the business lingo where you're talking to executives and you get to the point where you're like, you know what, if we actually had a world-class safety, program, we would probably increase our EBITDA by 4 to 7%. And I'm telling you, I don't know how many times I've said that to executive teams, and they're just like,
Yeah, I'm listening.
what do we got to do? And or I run into, and we talked about strategy, culture, and I'll get into where they bought a strategy from, Safety R Us or whoever it may be, right? Some company that's put together, hey, buy this program, it's $100,000, and they buy it and they try to implement, and a month or two goes by, they have an incident. Well, that ain't working, and then they scrap it. They put all the posters, all the motivational fluff everywhere, the emails, the CBTs, the PowerPoints, all of it was rolled out, and and the CEO gets on a call and everybody's on it, and it's a Teams call, and he's like, "We're from this day forward," and da 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 and da da da, and then you hear nothing from that CEO, 6 months, 9 months, whatever, and then all of a sudden, no, we're stopping that. We're going to start something else.
Well, nothing can take hold.
You didn't evaluate the culture that you have to figure out the systems that you need in place to help that culture get to where that strategy that is probably great. You just you weren't able to pull the trigger and implement it the way you should have with the culture. So you got to be able to marry them together. And that's why I was getting back to that. What have you seen, especially in the upper management, that has helped you, or what you've been able to battle through or get through, if you have it?
Yeah. A lot of the stuff that I've seen and I've been a part of is getting to break through. Is a lot of people will say, safety starts at the top and it's top down, which is true. I would say if you really want a culture, you have to have the C-suite bought in. But it's the guys on the ground, your frontline guys, who have to embrace it. So I think a lot of it is just like a war of two fronts. Is going out and being next to the guys and showing them and educating them on how to do it, but then going to the C-suite and being able to speak C-suite level, verbiage.
Yes.
Bean counters understand beans. So then when you go to the meeting with them, you can't be like, well, Jimmy's going to lose an eye and this guy's going to lose, they're going to be like, oh no, like, okay. I mean, they'll feel some sort of compassion perhaps, but it doesn't, it's not business speak for them. But then you go like, hey, we're having very high turnover rates. The way we can reduce turnover, increase our safety culture, that's going to, keep more employees, which then they're going to become more efficient. We're going to be, more productive. You're going to see a growth increase. And then recruiting is going to be easier, and then more individuals and more growth. One of the biggest metrics that I've always used, you can take your, your EMRs and your, DART reports and your TRIRs and stuff like that. But one of the biggest ones was we had a division of our company where we had, they're very high dollar, like they bring in a lot of good money, but they have very low man hours, just not very big. And they had one injury, which was a pretty big one, some time lost, and it destroyed the ability for them to bid on these high dollar jobs. So they had to, like, kind of, for the last 3 years they've been grinding in these smaller jobs, and they've been like working more hours, but for lower profits. So as that, injury is falling off, and we're starting to see some, lagging indicators and some bleeding indicators that are kind of showing us that we're like, we're kind of trending in a certain direction again. We sat down, and the president of that division was like, listen, we have lost X amount of dollars because we're not able to bid these jobs because of this injury. He goes, I'm not going to do that again. And I was like, yeah, what he said. You know what I mean? I'm like standing behind him, like, you tell him. But it's like that right there, just that interaction, you go to the C-suite, and I mean, you learn a lot of this stuff in college and things like that. ASP is really good for stuff like that. ASP and CSP, they cover a lot of those concepts as well. And I think that is really, really important to learn early. So, like I have 3 piles of papers. This is my toolbox talk for the guys. Hey, this is what, like, you guys want to be able to go home. Like, if you don't wear your gloves and you get injured, you're paid for that out of pocket. You don't want to pay for that out of pocket. And then you go to the middle managers and you're like, hey, these injuries don't increase production. We're going to have to investigate that. We're going to have to stop the job. We might lose a couple days of production on this, and through investigations, you guys are going to be in the, and you tell them you're losing production. They're like, whoa, no, right? But then you go to that last stack of papers, and it's all your metrics and your bar graphs, and you're like, hey, our insurance is actually climbing, so we're spending more money here because we're trying to cut corners down here. And they go, yeah, no, don't, nope, we're not cutting that corner. And that's, but it's like the whole, the vicious cycle. It's like, we cut the corner here to save $1. We push the production more, and then we hurt the individual. That's going to cost $80,000. Hey, that dollar that we saved is completely wiped out. Also, we're negative $79,999. Success. That's like, if we spend the dollar to buy the better glove, then the cut doesn't happen. When the cut doesn't happen, we don't lose the production, and we don't lose the man hours, and we don't lose the days doing the investigation. We have a near miss. And then we go, okay, that glove is good enough. We're gonna spend $2 to save the 80,000 down the road. But when the 80,000 never comes, then we start to look at the $2. Like, I really want to cut down here, and it's that constant reminder. That's the safety professional has to be very, very, very good at kind of collecting data and using real world concepts, and then capturing your near misses. Capture your near misses, because that is your bread and butter when it comes to getting more funding, when it comes to getting more improvements, when it comes to getting better training. That right there. Like, look, this is what could have happened. This is how we prevent it in the future. And then as soon as the C-suite sees that, they're like, oh yeah, we can spend the $5 here. Like, what's the same Sarah per vehicle? It's something silly. It's like 5 to maybe we'll say $30. $30 per vehicle. But it's like one accident can be hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Yes.
So what are we arguing here?
Yes.
But that's,
yes.
I think that's like how you overcome that, is you learn that department's lingo. I'm not going to walk into a fabrication shop and talk about concrete, because they're going to be like, who cares about concrete? This is metal. I'll be like, oh wow, it's like, you got like the TIGs you got. I mean, you're stacking dimes over here, and like they'll be like, oh, okay, this guy gets it. You know what I mean? You learn the best way. Honestly, the best way to talk to the guys is learn how they insult each other.
Yes.
You know what I mean? They're like, oh, grinder and paint make a welder what he ain't. And then you start using that against them, and they're like, even the safety guy, But that's
you're not
like
a welder, you're more of a grinder.
Exactly right.
Actual professional grinders that make things look great. So you're like, you gotta watch where you say that.
Right.
We're
like,
throwing the
hey,
mechanical guy against and Sparky's against the mechanical guy. Yeah, just yeah,
right.
yeah. You definitely got to learn the art of the rub.
Well, and that goes to your C. I mean, it's kind of cliche to be like, know your audience, but not necessarily know your audience. I mean, yes, obviously, but know how to sell safety to the people that you're selling it to. If I'm selling safety to a frontline guy, I go, this isn't going to impact your work. This is comfortable. This will protect you. Now you're not going to have to pay for stuff out of pocket. Perfect. That's what he likes. He wants something that is not bulky, it's not in his way, and he can use it. Right? The middle guys, I'm like, hey, this is cheap. You're not going to wreck the project by buying this stuff. They love that. Then you
Mhm.
go to the C-suite guys and you go, this is going to make sure that our insurance claims doesn't go up. This is, a high level option. It's a cut level above that what we need, but here's all the benefits down the road. This is the savings. This is the return of investment that we're going to see
Yeah.
because we implement this here. And that speak to the different levels, they go, oh, okay, now we're speaking the same language. You get a lot more success when you
Mhm.
start to learn how to phrase it, how to package it to somebody from different departments.
Right. And so in our profession, you know, there's only so many different safety books out there. I mean, there are if you look, you can find a safety book that an author's written. I mean, I've got two myself, but there's other things out there that I think that our community shies away from that they need to get into. Read those business leadership books. Learn Peter Drucker. Take a gamble and start audiobooking, because I think we talked about that last time. Like,
Oh yeah,
there, some of us get a lot of windshield time, and instead of just jamming out to whatever may be on the radio station, throw an audiobook, engage your brain even more, because we do it all the time.
right.
With the work that we do, no one gets into safety just to not learn, because it's a constant,
You have
continuous
to.
improvement craft that we're in. And so, what do you see? What other elements do somebody up and coming, or even some of us that are, old folks, if you will, in the community?
Yeah.
What should we be doing more of? What do you think we should do more of?
When we talk about, continuing educations, trust me, letters after the name, everybody loves them, right?
Yep.
I'm no better than anybody
Me too.
else,
Me too.
right?
I got it.
I love the letters after the name, and those certifications like your ASP, your CSP, any kind of degrees, they definitely have a place, absolutely have a place, and they are very effective. They're great at standardizing like some of the concepts that people need to know. However, the letters that you don't see, from the books you read and things like that, I feel like that has a better impact. And like you said, reading safety books are a great resource because it kind of shows you like oh, this person has dealt with all the things that I've dealt with. This is a workaround. This might work here. This might just, push the needle a little bit. Perfect. But if you are bad at leading, read a leadership book, right? If you're like, I don't know how to talk to people, read a public speaking book.
Yep.
Make yourself more well-rounded. One of the big things for me is I am not very good at being a negotiator. I don't I don't do well. It is I my children will probably tell you the same thing. There's one way. This is the way to do it, right? I am the Mandalorian. This is the way, right? that that doesn't work in a lot of these industries. So I had to kind of take a step back and become kind of a better negotiator. Like try to find the common ground. There's a book by Chris Voss that we talked about, which is
Never split the difference.
Never Split the Difference. And I've read that, and it's really like the art of you know dragging people to your side, and that helped me a lot more than reading a OSHA manual, or whatever, that has really helped me, because it's like I'm not a bad safety guy. I'm a bad salesman. Like, I know the regs, and I know what you're doing is wrong, and I know the right way, and I know how to teach you about the right way, but how do I convince you that you should want to do it? So then
Mm-hmm.
you start to learn, like, okay, that's when it comes back to like gaining common ground, kind of getting shoulder to shoulder with these guys. There's a number of times where I'm out in the field and everybody's doing things, or things safely, and they're shoveling up, whatever. And I'm like, oh, I'll grab a shovel. And they'll look at you cross-eyed for a little bit, and you're like, yeah, I know how to shovel works too. They're like, yeah, but the spade is on the top side. I'm like, I just flip that around. You know what I mean? Like, it's been a while, guys. Jeez. But that resource there, all the resources there for education. Read the safety books, absolutely, but find where your gap is. If you're like, they won't listen to me, learn how to have command presence, right?
Mm-hmm.
Learn how to be more confident. You're like, well, I'm confident, but you know, they're, they don't listen to me. They think I'm a jerk. Okay, learn how to be more personable. The idea that's like, when we say that, well, you got to grow in the safety department. I agree. Grow inside the safety realm. Inside the
Mm-hmm.
safety umbrella. Grow your safety knowledge, but grow as a person as well,
Mm-hmm.
right? One of the best things for me is my wife is an educator, and I cannot tell you how many times I've been sitting down. I'm like, these guys don't get it, and she
Mm-hmm.
was like, she's in special education, which I feel she's like using techniques on me when we're at home. Like, wait a minute.
Yes, I want to
So,
cook.
of course, I want a cookie. I'm like, I'm doing the dishes again this week, aren't I? But but learning from her has helped a ton as well, because I'm racking my head, and some of these issues, and she'll listen, and she'll be like, well, have you tried this? And some of them, I'm like, well, I'm not giving them a hug, so no. The hugs that I give are, these are painful hugs. It's mostly around the neck area. But
It's a high.
yeah, it's special. It's what we use in the field. But she's given me techniques on like communication, and she's like, have you tried, you know, Maslow's, hierarchy of needs?
Yep.
And then you're like, what in the world are you talking about? And they're like, maybe they're struggling at home. And
Yes.
then it goes back to like bridging the gap of knowledge. And then you start talking to the guy. And there's one guy that really, I was really struggling with. And
Mm-hmm.
I was really pushing for this guy to go. He had a bunch of, real bad near misses. And a lot of it was just like, dude, what are you doing? And like, he didn't say anything. He's just like, I don't know. I wasn't thinking. And I'm like, well, that works the first time. It doesn't work the second time. It doesn't work the third time. So I'm like, look, 3 strikes, you're out. And I, had talked to my wife in the meantime of this, and, pull him aside, and I pulled him into the office, and I sit him down. I'm like, what's going on? What is it going on? And he breaks down crying. His wife had just been diagnosed with cancer. And I'm like, of course, now I'm the monster. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, I'm like, this is why
Yep.
this is happening, is you are not here. You are checked out.
Mm-hmm.
So I talked to the plant manager. I said, what if we give him 3 days of, you know, of leave? He's got hours on the books already. He's got PTO.
Yep.
We just send him home, and, make sure everybody's good. And then, talk to him. It's like, why don't you take some leave? And we're gonna use your PTO and things like that. I'm not gonna suspend you. I just need you to take a break. And he was really grateful. And then in the meantime, we, put a, card together in a basket just to show that, like, okay, he came back and we gave him the basket. And again, he was really, really, but he was, soon as he went home and kind of had time to experience that with his wife and realize that she's okay, that he came back to work and he was more in tune and more ready to go. And he was a great employee, and he got out of the slump. They ended up, it was benign and it was not a big deal after a while, but that month was a struggle. And imagine, all these things are happening, your bills are piling up, your wife is sick, and then you get fired. It's like,
Yep.
that's not how I want to be known for, is the safety guy that fired the guy whose
Mm-hmm.
his wife's battling cancer.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, it's like, I also don't want to be, you know, the compassionate, you know, like, oh, well, we'll keep him and he's a knucklehead, but we'll keep him. It's like, I've
Right.
also got, 300 other employees that I got to make sure they go home too. And if you're so distracted where you can't focus, I understand things are going on at home. I've got things going on at home too. If you are so distracted where you're putting other people at risk, it's like, honestly, maybe this isn't the right environment for you.
Yep. And
So,
that's why I like some of the field prompts. I developed some field prompts, even a quick, are you okay to do your job today? Just a simple question, and if you ask it in a tone and a manner that's appropriate, of course, you know, they're going to be like, I got some stuff going on, but yeah, I'm good to work. Or, man, I really should probably just go home and take care of some things. It goes miles. It goes millions of miles. And you reminded me of a case that I had where I got called for reasonable suspicion on a job site, and I had a newer safety guy to our company with me, and we had an intern from the Army Corps of Engineers, and this guy was awesome.
great.
He get five degrees, but we
Yeah.
didn't know this about him at the time. He was just called intern, and insert name here. I'll just say intern Fred, and
Yeah.
if he watches, he'll know exactly who he is. He's the CEO of a massive company now. But anyway,
Anyways.
intern Fred is with us, and so we go to the job site, and I do what I normally do. I go and I have a conversation with people. So if you have reasonable suspicion and you tell me about it, and I'm the guy that's got to come and either take them to the clinic or do the in-house, check,
Right.
I'm going to go and evaluate from my training and my standards of how this person is. And the person, he did show some of those signs that you're kind of concerned about. So we get him in my vehicle and we're driving to a clinic 15 miles down the road from the job site. And I'm just talking to him, having a conversation. So was intern Fred and Matt, the other safety guy. And I said, hey, are you married? Because, sometimes we don't wear rings at work because, the job hazards. You don't want to,
Yeah.
sometimes I have mine, sometimes I don't. I said, so, and he goes, oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm like, all right, you got any kids? Oh yeah, we got twins, 3 months old. And of course, in my
Hmm.
head, yep, light bulb. And I'm like, you getting much sleep lately? And he's like, oh no, because I think we did 16 hours yesterday, and I got home and the wife hasn't been feeling good, so I had both of them. I had them all night coughing, like everybody in the house was sick, basically, but him.
Ugh.
And I'm like, you still had to go through the process, right? So I took him to the clinic, said, listen, here, provide a sample. We're going to get the results. And of course, bam, clear. I'm like, okay, let's go back. We go back and said, no, I want you to stay in my car with Matt and Fred, and then I'll go talk to the supervisor. So I said, listen, the kid's tired. Like, you would have done better doing what I do. So I'm going to start training all you supervisors in this, what I know to do of, hey, it's called intrusive leadership. So
Right.
I need to understand your crew, like I understand you and what makes you tick. I need you to start doing that too. And so I ended up actually making a curriculum for that, for the leadership, kind of alongside OSHA 30 for
Right.
supervisors and above. But I started doing that, and that made a better impact because then everybody was like, okay, hey, instead of jumping to the conclusion that everybody's on meth or whatever, you know, like,
sometimes you're correct.
oh yeah, I've had 3 in a row of the same, the same name, same injury, same location, same facility, and it within 1 week, and I'm just like, do not hire anyone named Tyler ever again.
Right. Tyler's done. You got to move on.
No Tylers, no Tyler.
Right. Like, do not hire this. Just says Tyler.
They're all dirty. And it's weird because they're the same way, and it's just like, what the hell's going on here? So, moving on to some of the other stuff, because we cover things, and I got questions that I've slated up, but and like I said, we can go in tangents. It doesn't matter. There's no really set. We can do that in safety a lot.
More tangents is where we're at.
Oh yeah. Rabbit holes and many rabbits. So because I'm already we already talked about continuous improvement. What do you guys, or what have you seen that works when it comes to feedback loops? Because this is what I've seen a lot is there will be a company survey, and it's always that anonymous survey that seems to come back and bite people on the ass for whatever reason. Like, I thought it was anonymous, well, apparently they don't want you to say that what's on your mind truly, right, because then it's going to come back and get you. And so that's not a feedback loop I like. I like feedback loops like, hey, we're going to start a new, because we get safety campaigns all the time. Like, for instance, mental health awareness, and I shared this with you last time, is when I was a part of an association, being in the military, when we have moments of silence, it's a moment of silence for a reason, right, and a justification, and it's either a names list or it's not just a generic anybody and everybody. It's these people we're having moments of silence for, remember the fallen. Well, you have fallen that you knew of. I have fallen I know of. So when we have that moment of silence for remember the fallen, we're remembering actual people, not just generically the soldier in 1819. We're not thinking of that person. We're thinking of,
actual
Jack,
people we know.
Actual people. And so I got called down to the lobby of the building, and we're filling out the certificate of all this stuff. And I shared the story with you, but I'll share it with the listeners so they hear it. And we end up going outside, and I don't know why we're going outside. And then she's like, everybody just hold up, your little certificate that you wrote, and then we're gonna have a moment of silence. And I'm just like, and all of a sudden there's a photographer, from our marketing department taking pictures, and it was like, okay, guys, thank you for participating. I'm like, and so I immediately, this was 4 hours away from my normal house, but I say immediately, but when I got home, I was so irritated. I had to get on one of my flip cameras, and I sit on my deck and I complain about it because I'm like, listen, that's not making a connection, especially because, again, we roll out these programs, right? We're trying to, hey, let's interject safety and everything, and mental health awareness, and giving out the little sticker and the number and all that stuff. Right. It does have its place, but I can play in the video, and I tell people, I'm like, you need the connection. I may not know what you're dealing with or what somebody else is going through, but I'm a human enough to go, hey, you got something going on that you need to talk with somebody, and instead of just going, well, here's a number, feel like Travis Tritt, here's a quarter, talk to someone who cares, because apparently I don't,
right.
That's how it comes off. And so I'm just like, I don't care if you have a PhD in psychology, whatever it may be. Usually human to human interaction, you're going to save lives way better and way more often by just talking to somebody like, hey man, what's going on?
Absolutely.
And absolutely. Even if it has to be, and this is where I encourage even people in safety, people in supervision, even day one employees, if you have somebody that you notice these signs, go ahead and have that conversation. Maybe even, and it sucks sometimes, hey, I'm going to be home late, babe. I got somebody I need to talk to. I think I can make an impact here. There might be something. I just, and hopefully you have a relationship that's, it's solid enough to
Right.
where you can do that. 'Cause some people don't. I know that, but and to make that difference in that change, and to have that engagement instead of, hey, here's a number, in case, spread that
Yeah.
awareness, you
Yeah.
know. And I do like the programs where they bring people that have either responded and saved a
Mm.
life, or for the person that had the issue and
Yeah.
got help. Those are impactful, but you know, those feedback loops, to me, sometimes those surveys, they just get redundant, they're not focused, and they normally don't involve or ask us.
Right.
And that's where that feedback loop, I think safety needs a seat at the table. I think safety needs a seat at the table and the executive, whether it be a VP or director, or even, you know, uh, well, just the director. Even you don't have to have a VP. Just you need some safety representative up there, because you always have HR,
Yeah.
you always have operations,
Right.
you
They're always
always have
there. Yeah.
finance, you usually have workman's comp there. To me, safety needs a seat at that table as well, and it may not be, because we talked about this, I think, where sometimes you're the only safety.
Yeah.
You're the one and only. You're the unicorn, and you're doing everything from top to bottom and in between. You have to be a mile wide and a mile deep. So
Right. That was me in my last company for that facility. I was, well, when I first started, I was safety and HR, which was was not good for me. I was like, why you guys thought putting a Marine in HR would be good? I don't know. That didn't work out well. Luckily now where I'm at now,
we're
I
not here to
have
HR to explain to HR. I mean, about HR.
I'm being bullied by HR actually, but
Go see safety.
yeah, they're like, maybe you're being unsafe too. But now I've got a team that I work with, a safety team, and we kind of divide it up. And I got when I swapped to this company, I got very, very lucky because the team, I was told by the director of safety, he's like, look, he's like, I'm a rubber to road guy. Like, we're going to make this culture better. He's like, it's gonna suck. He's like, but we're gonna do it. If there's a program that we need to do or something we need to implement, it's like, we're just gonna do it. And I was like, okay. And we've been doing it, and like, you can kind of see like the sunlight at the end of the tunnel. You're like, it's starting to click. And then every once in a while we take a couple steps backwards and you're like, who hired you? Who hired this guy? It's like, you're not meshing with everybody. We got a thing going on here and you're ruining it. But then but that, I think that piece too is, like you said, is being able to have the seat at the table and have, especially when it comes to like mental health and things like that. People don't,
Mhm.
people don't really give it credit like how strenuous it is, especially when you're in construction,
Mhm.
because it's deadlines and long hours and grueling work, and you
People
basically, you
showing
go
up
home, you sleep
without
late.
safety toes on, or they
Yep.
don't show up, and you're expecting a crew of 10, and you only got 3. All that, and yeah, it's
Yeah, and the production doesn't change.
no.
Like, oh, we're putting 200 yards of concrete on the ground, and
Mhm.
we were supposed to have it with 10. Now we got it with 2. So you guys better figure it out.
Mhm.
You know, you better call
Yeah.
somebody. But then,
Yep.
and then that's when it goes into, and that's, I think, the part that we can struggle with is, as safety individuals, we want to see the company succeed as well. We want, you know, the company to do well. And then when I see you know, a group that is half their man hours or half their manpower is gone, call outs or whatever, and then 2 guys being knuckleheads, I'm like, sorry, man, I gotta send these 2 home. And then they're like, Please don't.
Yeah.
And I'm like, but I've done it too, where I've had to send two guys home, and as soon as I did, I looked at the foreman. I'm like, "What do you need, man?" I'd say I'm not him. I definitely don't got the back of a 20-year-old, but so if you need help, man, I can try to help out.
Yep.
And I was like, that's the best I can offer you, but we can't allow that because, and that's like we have talked about before is the banner of safety is our number one priority. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, priorities change
Yep.
all the time. Safety is your
Yes.
number one priority until we got to make money, and then money's our number one priority until our
Mm-hmm.
quality sucks, and then quality is our number one priority. So it's like
Yes.
if we don't put the foot down and go, no, safety is not our number one priority. Safety is a pillar that holds up our business because with poor safety, you get poor production, you get high turnover, you get, your insurance
Patience.
rates. Yeah, it's just it is the domino. It's the main
Mm-hmm.
domino. The idea of the safety department is just a cost bucket. It's like, no, we're savings. We are
Yes.
cost savings. We're trying to reduce the output of money for these things that we will not have a control over, including insurance. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
and also we want to be able to bid these higher jobs, and we want to be able to include the fact that we have, a element in there that is, a safety budget. And when they
Yep.
see that and they go safety budget, and we're like, yeah, this is what we're projecting, and this
Mm-hmm.
is this is how serious we take it is we build it, into build it into everything. It's not a priority, it is a cornerstone. And if
Mm-hmm.
you can get if you, and I'm not talking about corporate, checkbook or checkbox safety. That's not what I'm
Right.
talking
Yep.
about. I'm talking about a true, if I leave the job site, does the hard hat stay on?
Right.
That is the type of safety that you want.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Um, Catching up on some of my questions here. Oh yeah. So I don't. I think we might have talked about this in our first interview, but it's advice for listeners, and what advice would you give to listeners who are interested in improving safety in their own workplace, communities, job sites? What is that advice? We're going to talk about the future of EHS again because we did a good one the last time, but just that alone, what advice would you give to listeners who are interested in improving safety in their own workplaces, and places like that?
I Again, a lot of it comes into to understanding that you are not alone in your particular struggle. You know, Guys aren't listening if they're not wearing the PPE. Same. You like if there's a safety guy out there that goes, everybody listens to me, everybody wears all the PPE, like I'm gonna find that guy, I'm gonna punch him in the face because that's not fair. Right? It should not be that way. It will struggle. You will struggle.
Mm-hmm.
You have to be willing to weather the storm early.
Yeah.
If you are getting into safety and you're struggling, we talk about burnout. It is easy to burn out in safety because it's like nobody's listening. I'm not making an impact. What am I even doing here? The top says I spend too much money. The bottom says, that I'm just a waste on the job site.
Mm-hmm.
There's there's no there's no positive. Well, if you cannot weather that, this might not be the profession for you because you are going to face that. You are going to have those days where you're like, I'm only going backwards. But I will say, for every day where you're just going from injury to injury to injury, or a job site where everything is messed up, where you're like, where do I even begin? You know, I don't even know where to start. You start at the beginning, right? Correct one guy. and it starts from there, right? You fix one thing and you grow from there. The other thing is you have to hold yourself to a higher standard every job site you go to, right? Let me tell you, I go out on sites and I'll be in high vis, a class 3, with a hard hat, glasses, safety toe shoes, every job site. Even if the job site does not require visibility, I'm in it, right? And they'll even tell you, you don't need a hard hat for being out here. I know it, right? It just because if you are willing to put the stuff on and wear it and hold yourself to a higher standard, then the guys can go, well, if he's willing to wear high vis and his glasses and his hard hat and gloves and all this stuff, I can at least just put my glasses on. Right? Because I'm like, I'm at this level, I just need you to be here. I just need you to meet me there. And then a lot of the times they, you kind of, again, it's like just putting yourself out there and putting yourself in their shoes and understanding like that sucks for me too. It's hot out here. I'm in jeans, but it's that ability to be able to struggle and know that this isn't gonna, this is gonna be your first struggle. If you're getting into safety, this is not gonna be your biggest struggle. Trust me. Fighting guys to wear their PPE, I wish for those days. We've got days where we're, trying to figure out how $60,000 in damages occurred. And we're in meetings with like CEOs and they're going, how did this happen? And we're like looking at my notes and they're all in crayon and I'm like, oh, man, I don't even that was in my other, bag. But it's the little things that are gonna drive you nuts, drive us all nuts. It is a struggle that you're gonna face. And when you are facing these burnouts and facing these days where you're like, I just can't do it anymore, look for the victories. Look for the little wins because you'll go out on a job site and maybe everything is jacked up, but then there's, Jimmy in the corner and he's got all the stuff on, he's doing everything right. Celebrate that. Learn to go and celebrate it with that person. Go up and go, hey, man, I appreciate what you're doing. Thank you for doing that. Because then that is your reward. That is the heart paycheck, if you will. That is right. That is how we get our ability to kind of go, okay, one more day, I can do this again. And then you go out on a job site and then you got 2 guys doing the right thing. And you're like, okay, those little growth, watching the company start to kind of turn around is incredible. I have had it where a culture is broken and fractured. We had bad safety guys. We had bad, the baseline safety there was not good. And we had it. There was a time for a company that I worked for where we had 2 to 3 injuries a week, and I mean eye injuries, hand injuries, lacerations, partial amputation of a finger. So it was like my whole job was just taking guys to the quick care, and
You didn't go
processing
to work,
for
you
it.
went to interruptions. That's what I say.
Right.
We don't go to work, we go to interruptions a lot of the time.
So that was my first 2 or 3 months was that. By the time I had left that company, we had been, I think, 8 months injury free. And again, that's not like I don't just hang my hat on, no injuries, but
Right.
it was a result of, so I don't use no injuries to measure good culture. I
Right.
implement good culture to strive for no injuries. That's kind of like how it works for me. And I was able to see that happen. And that is such a huge motivation to keep going. Those little wins right there where you're like, I was a part of that, and then the bigger picture of being able to impact, even slightly impact the job site in a positive way that should be something that the golden sticker on your hard hat is like, okay, like I educated this guy. I'll give you a perfect example. Guy at a job site was driving across the work site. He was in a man basket. He was maybe a foot off the ground, no harness. I pulled up next to him, had him stop, and he's like, and the first thing he said, he's like, "What did I mess up now?" And of course, I laugh and stuff, and I was like, "Where's the harness at?" He's like, "I'm just driving across the yard," and I was like, "You're right, you're not too high. That is 100%." I was like, "But what you are doing is driving a catapult."
Mm-hmm.
And he looked at me like confused, and I was just like, "You got time? I'll show you a quick little video." Hopped on YouTube, watched like 2 or 3 videos of guys getting launched out of them. I was like,
Mm-hmm.
honestly, you're gonna get more injuries from doing this
Yeah.
than
Yeah.
going up, because you're a little bit more scared. Like, you need to have a healthy fear of being here. And he was like, I never even thought of that. And he looked at me and he goes, legit, like, he goes, "Hey man, I appreciate it. Thank you." And I was like, "You know what, man? You're welcome." And I was like, "I'm here for you." Like, and it was like one of those, I got in the truck. Now he may go, "What an idiot. I'm never wearing the harness." He may go that way. But a genuine education moment is what I value.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not here to be the police. I'm not
Right.
here to kick people off of sites and write them up. What I am here is, I am here to fill a gap in education. Nobody
Mm-hmm.
wants to be hurt. These guys don't want to get hurt. It's like, however, if I can go, "Hey, this is what could happen," and he goes, "Huh, I never do that." I'm like, perfect. That's a check mark for me. That's how
Mm-hmm.
I measure my little successes. And that's what you got to find. You got to find out where your success is and how do you measure it.
Right. And back to the junior people and experiencing the burnout or getting knocked down in the fight that we all are in, when it comes to maybe the money, the budget, or a program or whatever it may be. you know this is kind of why I have the channel that I have. Is I want this to be a thing to where people like us will talk about these issues. We won't be in that siloed mentality that we,
Right.
because we're siloed sometimes inside the company. We don't, again, at a place at the table, we may not be in with HR and operations and finance or whoever, sales teams or anybody else. So we're not part of that. We're always that entity that's there that isn't,
Right.
who the hell's that? So,
Right. You still work here? See, that's the thing
so
is, we're in the office just enough where they go, "Oh, it's, safety's over there. That's its office." But I'm in the field just enough where they're like, "Oh, safety guy's out here." So nobody knows where I am. Like, I'll
mhm.
be in the office and I'll get people who call me from 2 offices down. They'll be like, "Hey, where are you?" I'm like, "I'm looking at you." And they're like, "Oh," like, so because that they'll go to your office and I'm out in the field,
Mhm.
and then they'll call me like, "Hey, are you in the field over here?" And I'm like, "No, I'm in the office today," or whatever. And so it's that dichotomy of, like, nobody knows where you are, so they don't run into you enough. So when you talk about the siloing, is because we are truly a hybrid position.
Mhm.
Because you have your office work and your admin stuff, but you also have, being a field presence is highly important. So that also kind of leads to the segregation as well.
Well, and so again, to the point of the channel is maybe this could be an avenue for some people. And even if you're senior, everybody needs a sponsor. And I don't care how, if you're the CEO of Fortune 500, you got to have somebody you need to be talking to about the problems that you're experiencing and facing. So, that's what I'm hoping to also be a part of, is maybe because Seneca Medici, he's got 2 books out and I love them both. One is Meditations of a Safety Guy, and the other one's Caveman the King's Jedi Councils. And in it, and it's just what we've talked about the whole books thing, is your Jedi Council. You know, you've got your Yoda, whoever, you know, on your Jedi
Mm-hmm.
Council, that whether they're dead or alive, you're able to have thought experiments, if you will, of what conversations you could have with whoever. You know, so if I was like, oh wait a minute, you know, I'm in a situation, what would be a nugget of wisdom from Jeremiah that I can that I may have talked to him about, or maybe I need to ask him about something and get that feedback. We need those mentors. We need something, because we don't have the avenue. We've talked about this before. We have the conventions that we can go to. You know, we get our cup filled up a little bit at those, or we have an online thing or a class that we go to. This in our community of, hey, let's jump on a podcast call, talk about some issues, and then realize we are all in that same room together, you know, but there's partitions between us. We can't see each other. But I want this to open those eyes and those connections to go, hey, no, I can reach out to Jeremiah and say, hey, man.
Well, I have done that before. Is, you know, previous guys that I've worked with, other safety guys. In fact, one of the, you know, previous guys that I work with, I lean on him a lot because we have a division where he specializes in, and I just don't have a lot of knowledge in. You know, he's an operator. He's been an operator for 20 years. He's really big into. He's in the safety now. I've asked him for things, and I've had them reach out to me and go back and forth. And then one of the one of my former safety directors, me and him, much like me and you, kind of have a very similar mindset on how we approach safety, how we, you know, see, you know, safety, and how we kind of measure our metrics. And me and him have conversations constantly, and he's become actually a pretty good friend of mine. And um, we talk about, you know, previous companies that we've been at and things like that, and we kind of go back and forth as well. And when you have that resource, you know, where you can kind of go, and this is a unique situation. I wonder if Ryan has dealt with something like this. You know, you really, you know, the safety Jedi Council or a safety roundtable would be amazing. You know, it might be something where, and like we talked about, like the conferences are great. You know, conferences are good, new concepts and stuff, but it's really just they always turn into like a sales thing. Or you'll get it like a motivational speaker, and he's like, "Ah, the best way that I do it is, you know, I get out there and get him a cup of coffee and stuff, and you know, and you just gotta keep focusing on the OSHA regs." And it's just like, yeah, it's like we understand that, but it's like there was one, and my director now, he's, you know, he did my job for 11 years basically by himself. Now I have a team with me. So he does the, like, back in my day, he's like,
Yeah.
I was it. And there's been some times where I've like gone into his office and I'm like, I really don't know like how to approach this problem. And he's like, this is who you need to talk to. And I'm like, and he's like, I can show you this. He goes, this is the foreman. Go talk to him. Like, you want this guy to start wearing his PPE? Go talk to him. Like, this is his older brother. And then I was like, if you can win him over, you've got the younger brother. And I'm like, interesting. And I'll show up to be like, you know what your little brother's doing? And he'll be like, oh, what's that, you know, POS doing now? And I'm like, huh. And I'm like, gone back to the site, and it's like, you told my brother on me? I'm like, I did. I did tell your brother on you. You know, it's like having that resource and having that, you know, ability to you know, spin the Rolodex and, you know, show at my age, spin the Rolodex and look up and being like, here's a, you know, if somebody was like, man, I'm just getting an MSHA, like, these are some MSHA guys that, you know, I could kind of lean on. and I've done it before. There was one of my buddies is trying to get into safety, and he's thinking about getting out of his current career. And I was like, shadow me for a day. And he was like, really? I talked to my director, and I was like, what do you think about that? And he goes, absolutely,
Mm-hmm.
absolutely. And he spent a full day with me, and I went to job site after job site, and he was like, how do you manage all this? I was like, it's just like eating an elephant, man. It's just one bite at a time. It's like, I'll set out like a beginning of a week, and I'll be like, okay, I want to look out. I'm going to check lockout, tag out. So I'll
Mm-hmm.
go to our fab shops. I'll go to the plant, and I'm like, I'm specifically looking for that. Now, if I see things along the way, then I'll make my corrections as I need to. But I'm looking specifically for lockout, tag out, and then I'll put a report out, and the report will be like lockout, tag out audits or whatever.
Right.
And because it just gives you like a snapshot of like this is where our trends are. But even if somebody else in the industry is like, hey, we're seeing a lot of this, like we're seeing a lot of hand injuries once we switch to
Yep.
these new gloves. And then Ryan, you might be like, man, we have those gloves too, and we have a lot of hand injuries. And I might go, we don't have any of those problems because we use these. And
Yep.
now you go, huh, those are cheaper. That's a higher, you know what I mean? Just something silly like that. But just have a bank of like, hey guys, what do you think about this? You know,
Right. And that
seems a great idea.
we covered this topic a little bit when we talked before with the interview that's somewhere in the cloud, maybe.
It's in the cloud.
Yeah. Uh, because we're talking along this topic, but also with AI, and then AI is a good tool, but it has its
Right.
limitations. 'Cause I think I told you about Cesar Millan, rules, boundaries, expectations, is that AI will give you things that are not real or correct. They'll make up a CFR that's
Right.
not real. They'll give you a case study that never happened. And that's where I've had to caution a few people, even executives, that think, well, we can make an AI agent to replace that, or we'll have it make our safety manual. No,
Yeah.
that's not a good idea, because there's not one out there that's 100% foolproof that can give you the
No.
accurate information.
And
And
they'll
yeah,
even tell you that.
yeah. So that was the whole thing of the up and coming, because they're going to be immersed in AI.
Oh yeah.
And we talked about you mentioned QR codes, which I love QR codes. I like QR codes to check out forklifts. Hey, you get, and then you have the sheet on your phone or
Yep.
whatever that you're checking everything, and then bam, it's done. Because we don't have to have paper copies stacked up, manual books,
Right.
collecting dust, and have 14 times there was a leak in the hydraulic hose and then no one caught it because it was on paper and it's in a binder in a book and on the closet shelf somewhere and
And
no one cares.
nobody's ever checked it. Yeah.
So with the new AI, that's good with the QR codes and stuff. But to get these new people that are coming in and they're going to deal with a lot of AI, I love the things that spot human traffic in those high traffic industrial areas
Hmm.
in manufacturing or construction. Those are great. I like the QR code for rally points. I think that's
Right.
that's one of the
We
phenomenal
check
things
in.
out.
Yeah. Everybody checks in.
Bam, and then you got, hey, we got everybody. It's
Right.
awesome. Instead of waiting on the Teams chat, or whoever you got in the app that you're using to communicate with everybody on site, or radios. You got everybody. Do we have everybody?
Yeah. Everybody's
If
on a
3 minutes
different
have
channel.
passed, you have no answer. You're like, you
Am I the only? I'm the last person left.
so, um, and so, like, because I've even been on sites where they've had lone workers, and that's always a big thing for me is the
Mhm.
lone worker. Whether they have a radio, yeah, it's great they have a radio, but if they knock themselves out, it doesn't do you any. It's like
Yeah. I haven't seen a radio that auto communicates that the person is in high distress. You know what I mean?
exactly, until we get to those wearables where
Yeah.
yeah,
And then, you got a guy who's, in the bathroom for too long and they're like, this guy's having an emergency. It's like, no, he had Mexican for lunch. It's different. I mean, still, yes, an emergency, but You know?
So we're gonna get into some of the final thoughts, but the question before the final thoughts is, if you could change one thing about how organizations approach environmental health and safety, what would it be and why?
The my biggest, I guess my biggest gripe and my biggest thing to change is stop using safety as like a tagline. You know what I mean? Stop using safety as like a our culture's so great because our safety is number one. It's like I I can spend 5 minutes in your shop and I can probably poke holes in that. Like
Mm-hmm.
safety is not a banner. Safety is
No.
not a campaign. It isn't a headline on your business's website. Safety should be integrated because
Absolutely.
you have humans working for you that should go home to their families, hopefully. So quit in the industry and in this career field when companies say that safety is like we treat safety because everybody needs to go home. It's like, okay, that's the talk, but are you walking the walk? And most of the times they're not because it's a campaign. Like you said, they bought it for 100 grand, and this is
Yep.
cool and it's shiny and this is what the trend is. But it's like I've seen companies that have all the flashy things and they have the 200 days since our last reported injury, and it's like,
Right.
oh, you know that's
Right.
interesting that you put that word right in there. And those things, and then you go in there and nobody's wearing any PPE. You've got you know people doing things, starting small fires in the shop and all these, and it's just like, this isn't safe stuff. Like,
Yep.
you're going to hurt somebody or possibly kill somebody, and that idea that this is just it's a box that we check, that is dangerous. The days of kids in coal mines is something that we should always put behind us. It's that idea of, like, you know
You remember what said to you last time, right? We
go
spent
ahead.
years getting kids out of mines only to have a game called Minecraft come out because I got a grandson who loves to play Minecraft.
Right back
We're
in.
virtually immersed into Minecrafting.
Yeah, it's different though. Yeah, you get more carpal tunnels, less black lung, so it's better. We were striving in the right direction. But
And if you're
that
on a chat community, you get maybe a little more vocabulary than you would.
yeah, the words you learn are not great. It's really aggressive for Minecraft. But when when we when we put that out there, when the C-suite or whatever, they're like, we're gonna do the safety campaign. The first thing it does is it drives your safety down because all the workers look at that, and you know you can call your workers whatever you want, knuckleheads or whatever they are. Blue collars are one thing across the board, is they see through the BS. If you put something out there that is just like a box safety thing, they're gonna look at that and they're gonna be like, yeah, okay. They're not gonna care. That is the most common blue collar trait, and the love for white monsters. Those two things specifically are going to be your biggest traits. Is the ability for them to spot BS a mile away is is universal.
Mm-hmm.
When you roll out those safety programs and those safety campaigns like that, that's exactly what it is. It's just BS.
Yeah.
So that,
That's
as, this as a person involved in changing of cultures, or especially where I've been, it doesn't work that way. There is no easy button. It's hard work, and you got to get out there and you got to grind.
Yes, absolutely. Speaking of guided grinding, are there any resources or tools that you recommend for staying updated in the best practices in EHS in our community?
I honestly, I said it last time, and I'll shout it out again. This right here is a podcast like this. This is something that should have been done a long time ago. The fact that you're championing this is a huge resource. A way for safety guys to kind of look and just kind of catch a casual conversation and kind of see some trends and things like that. There's no place that's gonna do it is easily accessible as something like this.
Mhm.
So the podcast that you're doing, what you're doing here, the mission that you have right here is a huge, huge boost to the community. The fact that you're out here, doing this and seeking new information and talking to safety guys and stuff, this is going to have such a huge impact. As much as I'm sure some days feel daunting,
Oh yeah,
the fact that yeah, the fact that you're doing this is a huge step for our career field in general. I think, you know, picking up a book, you know, and reading new literature, getting a new book, and even if it's, somebody you've never heard of or anything like that, even if you glean one or two things out of that book, it's worth it. You've
hmm
learned one or two things. Because it's the same thing with any of the fancy certifications and things like that. A lot of the stuff is going to be stuff that you already know, and there's going to be one or two things where you're going to go, huh, I bet you I could use that.
yep,
Like, so go out and get the books and get the resources and consume the content. And probably the biggest thing is just to to read it with an open mind instead of going, that'll never work here. How do you know? You know what I mean? Or like they go to a podcast and like these guys have been in the industry for years, so it's different there. What it isn't different.
yeah,
I bet
correct.
anybody watching this that is in the safety field, I bet you can walk to my job site and see all the same things that happens at your job site, and I can do the same thing. There's no new
Absolutely.
ways to kill guys in construction. It's
Nope.
the same things that we've been doing, the same mistakes over and over and over again.
Absolutely, absolutely. And thank you for that. Thank you for saying that. Um, and like we talked about last time too, I am all for making our own safety council, if you will, where we're having these conversations, and maybe we can even sarcastically approach, hey, let's pick something off the internet, that's not copyrighted, and go, hey, here's an incident, you know, kind of like I like the behavior panel. I like Chase Hughes
Mm-hmm.
and the rest of them that analyze behavior and stuff. Maybe we can even do that, and maybe we have some people that are new to safety that come on and be like, hey, this is what my vision sees. What do you see, Jeremiah? And then
Right.
and this might be an eye opener and an avenue for the betterment of our industry, because that's we do have siloed everywhere. We're siloed from each other. We're siloed. Even if you go to a convention, you're still siloed. I've been into
Right.
where, hey, there's all the Caterpillar guys sitting at that big table,
Right.
there's all these guys, they're all sitting at, and it's like, okay, well, we're sitting at our table, just,
Right.
so, and we don't mingle like we should. And I've learned, because I go to different conventions outside of safety conventions, where I've learned I talk to everybody. I try to make it my point to be like, man, I don't know if I really want to talk to the person, but I'm gonna go over there and just see. And then sometimes that turns into a 5-hour conversation that I would have
Right.
never had before, and got some insight or imparted some wisdom, and I love that. I love that part about it. That's what I love about this is I'm getting to know you. You're getting to know me. I've had a few other interviews. I've had some interviews that I've recorded that they're like, I kind of misspoke so much. I don't want that interview out. And I'm like, I respect your wishes. I'm not going to do that, And I'm
Right.
just like, can I put some shorts out though that where we had some really? They're like, nah, I just rather not do the whole thing. Give me another month or two, and I'll get back. Okay, So I'm understanding at least for that point, because I make mistakes. I step over my tongue so many times. Sometimes I can't say a simple word for the first 3 times trying it, and then there might be 4 sentences later that I can say it correctly. I don't know why.
Right.
Navy. I don't know.
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I think this needs to happen more often, and I'd love to have you back on again. And
Absolutely.
again, maybe we can have a panel of people put together something out, and we'll get a time schedule and like, hey, because Georgie, Dr. Popoff, professor at University of Central Missouri, intrigued him with a model that I've mentioned to you, SIM, the safety integrated model, and the 6 axes that I'm bringing in that ties everything together. And since we mentioned Minecraft, well, if you ever played a game that has, it's almost like a hexagon, but it's got the points. It kind of looks like the old Dodge medallion,
Okay, yeah.
like a pentagon almost. But inside it, everybody starts at 0. Okay, and if it's a metrics from 0 to 5, well, are you 0 to 5 in culture, 0 to 5 in leadership, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And each
like
one,
a personality square.
yes, a lot like that. But if you don't have, if one area suffers, all suffer. And so when you do your metrics and you do this measurement that I've come up with, I got some templates and stuff that I've designed and implemented, and got nothing but positive results. And I've been like, hey, I want you to try this and give me feedback. Like, does this work for you? And everybody that's like, oh my God, what, we should do this. I'm like, I got to have more test results. I got to have more case studies so I can actually do this. And that's where I'm hoping to get, Georgie on. I'd love to get you a part of that. The guy I talked to today in Canada, which I don't interview till January, would love to have you. I have a lady that's in Indiana that's coming on Monday. And again, it's like us. We could talk. We could probably have a 10-hour interview. I already know that. We could go on. And on. And she says she's the same way. I said, well, great. I said, well, it's just, in that perspective, because you probably had a lot of women colleagues. I have too. And I've had the part where I've had to be a quiet voice in the background that got asked to be there because they didn't feel like that they were getting listened to, and then didn't have to be like, she's absolutely right. What are you assholes doing?
Right.
And they're like, oh, you were listening. Whether it be on a Teams call, whatever. I'm a number in the bottom of the corner. They don't know who I am. And that pushback. It was like, because she's a female doesn't mean she doesn't know what she's talking. I would take her over anybody I've worked with before. I've had these issues. And so she's going to probably be talking about some of her issues where, she's a female in safety. It's like, it's a female in business. Anyway,
these like heavy, industrial, like male leaning, fields, that could be tough,
Yeah. And sometimes it's not because of the difference in genders. There are people that just have a brain function that sees things in a different light or a different avenue, kind of like what you talk about your wife, when she uses her techniques on you. Some, because my wife, she was a hospice nurse, and also she got heart as big as anything, and she's tiny. But we have a conversation sometimes where if I don't understand somebody's thought pattern or something, and this was anti-safety, not safety stuff. It was, real world related, because I'm a dad of 2 boys. I have 3 grandchildren, and I've had friends, buddies, relatives that aren't that dad or that grandpa, and I don't understand that. And she's like, if you did, you would be just like them. And that's hit me years and years. And I've used her quote, and everyone's like, what? So, and I use it in safety. If I don't understand why you're not wearing a harness, I've got to get to your understanding, or try, and if I can't, I've got to get your understanding to my understanding.
Right.
And that's where
there's just education gaps. Yep.
And that's what it does. So, well, I don't think I have any more questions. Let's double check. No? Is there anything else? Final thoughts that you want to?
The final thought is it's always the same. Look, like I said when we started, nobody hates bad safety guys worse than good safety guys. If you are in the industry and you're, this is a paycheck to you, and it's just, whatever, you're kind of half in, half out, you don't really care, just find another career field. For if anything, for the sake of the career field, for the, for the sake of all these individuals that, you see on the job sites, being, half in on the safety side, it hurts everybody involved. And the guys who do want to make it better and are trying to make cultures better, is you are dragging us down too. If you don't believe in what you're preaching, if you're trying to play the gotcha game and you want to be a safety cop and you drive around in the truck and take pictures and make reports and nobody's even seen you before, it's like that's not what you should be. That's not real safety. So what you're doing is detrimental to the career field. And if you don't think like, man, I'm not really making a difference, just if you don't think you're making a difference, just look for the positives. So for the guys who do want to be there, do want to be better, find your gap, whether it's sales or personal, and then be a better salesman, be a better person, be a better, you can go get safety certs and do that all day long, but find your gap and improve that, make that better. And then if you can't, hire somebody who's that, who fills that gap for you, and then lean on that guy for that. You know what I mean?
Yes,
But
yes. Like I said,
that's
I've been a part of a group where we had the person that was that permit compliance person, and and then we have the OSHA go to, and then we have the EPA go to, we have the DOT guru, and that I love those teams because you're always a part of a solution, even though you may not be in the equation.
right.
You're at least added into those parentheses, and then you're like, oh, and then you learn by proxy, or because you were in the conversation, you may have had a thought that no one else had, and you say, hey, what about this? And then you get to be your hero in your community with that group, and
right.
like, and then you can talk about it all year. Like, you remember I came up with
remember when I did that? It's that meme of the Starship Troopers. I'm doing my part. I'm doing my part. Yeah, that's that.
All right, man. Well, I thank you. Great interview, and I'm gonna I'll stop it, and then we'll be on here talking some more. But
all right.
Thank you for coming on again. EHS Concepts with Safety. Love to have anybody else on. Come be a part. You can be a part of the conversation with me and Jeremiah. That'd be great. One-on-one with me.
Do it.
Maybe come into our own Jedi Council, if you will, for safety. So thank you for watching.